to you. So, in your introduction, you mentioned that it can be difficult to navigate the Paris Agreement. So, and indeed, for people who are not familiar with our process, I can understand that this can be a challenge. What happened in Paris is the completion of a multi-year process that ended up with the adoption of a new legal instrument under the Climate Change Convention. So the basis of all the work that took place is always the Climate Change Convention, which is into force since 1994. And then attached to each convention, there is always the possibility of creating a new instrument. That was the case of the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and this is the case of the Paris Agreement. The format of this is the fact that there was a decision, the so-called Decision 1CP21, which was the COP in Paris, which adopted the Paris Agreement, and it is contained as an annex to this decision. And the accompanying decision is also a very important element, I will explain you why, of the overall Paris package. So the agreement itself, you correctly mentioned that one of the main achievements was to put the world on a path which will help us to keep below the 2 degrees, well below the 2 degrees centigrade increase in temperature. And for the first time, a clear reference to the aim of the 1.5 degrees was put on paper. And so this is the direction, and this is the framework that the Paris Agreement is providing to the world to move to a low-carbon, resilient world. And the major success is that this is universal. So if you want to compare it with the Kyoto Protocol, again, coming from the convention, where at the time there were only a number of countries taking on board the targets, which were legally binding at the time. But of course, the fact that not all countries were on board in that context, including a major emitter, made the Kyoto Protocol over time very weak. Even if there were been a number of important benefits, and you know the Kyoto Protocol is still in place and will run its second commitment period until 2020. So what is different, therefore, is not only having this clear long-term direction, having the universal participation. So almost every country, and I will say why almost, is on board, but everybody agreed unanimously to join this Paris Agreement. Now, one of the essential components, which I think is one of the biggest success of Paris and our process, which probably is not so visible, is the fact that 189 national climate plans, so-called INDCs, have been received by the Secretariat, and have been submitted by those countries who were ready already to put forward what are their intention and plans for action on climate. Action that can start immediately now, as of 2016, others have different time frame, but therefore the real big important achievement is the fact that all these are there, are visible, can be seen by everybody, can be seen also in terms of their contribution to their national sustainable development plans. And therefore, on the basis of those, there are already clear estimates that those 189 commitments of countries will bring us to a different path that would have been otherwise. Now, the current estimate, they're indicating that this will take us around 3 degrees increase, which, as part of the agreement, we know that is not enough. That's why in the agreement itself and the accompanying decision, it's clear that this level of ambition must be raised. This national plans needs to be revisited with the aim of increasing ambition to bring us to the goal of well below 2 degrees. So, and this was even difficult to think only a few years ago after the failure of the Copenhagen conference in achieving the same level of result and ambition. So all these are very good news for our planet, are very good news for all of us. And of course, it's also clear that it's not enough, that much more has to be done, and in particular in raising the level of ambition by all countries. Now, what else is in the content of the Paris Agreement? The Paris Agreement, as I said, provides a framework, is a broad framework for action, gives the sense of direction, gives the sense, the fact that there is no way back, we are moving in that direction, and much more has to be done. However, it is a broad framework. A lot of work will start now from this year to define the rules of the game. So the rules book from the Paris Agreement, they have almost all have to be written. And this has to be written in different stages, and this process will take the form of COP decisions that will be taken at future COPs, starting from this year in November in Marrakesh, Morocco, at COP22. What does it mean? It means that if some elements of the articles of the Paris Agreement are not well defined, are not yet clear, it's also because that for many of these elements, rules and procedures, a lot of technical work has to happen, and new bodies have been created, and then the first one being the so-called ad hoc working group on the Paris Agreement, a new acronym that you will have to get familiar very soon. It's APA, and this first meeting of this APA will be here in Bonn in May this year. And starting to work exactly to define, on the basis of the mandate contained in the decision, what are these rules. Now, I think it's important that there are questions to whether extent, to the extent in which this agreement is legally binding and so on. And I want to use the comparison with the Kyoto Protocol, which I briefly mentioned. The Kyoto Protocol was a top-down approach in terms of a number of parties to the protocol, taking commitment, clear targets, a system of monitoring, verification, and compliance, and as I said, showed some limits in that. Now, the legal elements of the Paris Agreement, and I would like to use an example that our executive secretary is using in her communication now, is that individual targets for all countries are themselves not legally binding, because they will be revisited, they will improve over time, and there is a commitment to review this every 5 years. So what is really the legally binding component here is the direction, the destination where we want to go, so the goal we mentioned, the well below 2 degrees, the various mileposts on the way, the reporting, and the verification of progress. These are all legally binding elements, and they will be subject to international review. So that's a very big difference between this Paris Agreement system and the Kyoto Protocol. Another element I think it's important to clarify is the different status of the Paris Agreement vis-à-vis a COP decision. The Paris Agreement, once it will enter into force, and I will move soon to that aspect, is going to be an international treaty. As an international treaty, there are clear rules on how this can be amended, and they are very complicated, and they are very time-consuming, and we again take consensus to change any single element or word even of the Paris Agreement. However, COP decision, as you well know, can be taken every year at this at our COPs, and they can be, of course, superseding previous one. they can adjust and clarify elements. So governments and of course other actors who can be working with governments have the possibility to adjust or clarify further or complement some language contained in the Paris Agreement through COP decisions in the years to come. So that's the real basic elements of the Paris Agreement, and the component of them. So, I mean, there are many articles, and of course, if there is any specific question on them, we can try to dig in the various articles if we have the time. But what is clear there that elements like mechanism that can be compared with the market mechanism contained in the Kyoto Protocol, also as an instrument is there, which is Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And again, for this new market and non-market mechanism, the rules have to be defined. And again, a new set of work has to start to make sure that all this system is ready in place at the moment of the entry into force. Well, we are, and I'm conscious about the time, we are definitely moving in a new, very important phase, because we don't have to think that the work has been done in Paris. Actually, the work was starting in Paris. Now we are moving into implementation. And of course, one of the key elements and moments in time to make sure that this process goes forward sorry, is the entry into force of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement will be open for signature on 22nd April in New York, where the depository, so the Secretary General of the United Nations, has its headquarters, and will open for signature. And of course, from the moment the country signs on the agreement, the process, the domestic process of ratification starts, and of course may vary from country to country, depending on the rules of their domestic rules. However, there is a threshold after which the Paris Agreement will enter into force, which is 55 signatories representing 55% of the global emissions. So, and what we are seeing is that the positive signal, the political importance of the entry into force of the Paris Agreement, and the enthusiasm which is around in all stakeholders, in all citizens about this important achievement may push the entry into force to an earlier date that was expected, which was 2020. And it is not at all impossible to imagine that the entry into force will be well before 2020. It's now difficult to give an estimate of when, but of course the work needs to accelerate, and therefore the moment of the April 22 is really crucial to see the momentum around the signature of this agreement, and therefore the move into the ratification and entry into force. And here I would pause a second about the process itself, because it's a key moment in which faith-based organization, the mobilization they can support, the role in talking to each individual, each of us are playing and have played in the process toward Paris, in mobilizing support for the signature and mobilizing support for later the ratification. And therefore, really, it's an appeal to you to continue all your activities and to focus on this important moment in April, to make sure that at the national level, in every country in the world, there is support for the government to go to New York to sign the Paris Agreement and then move rapidly to the ratification. So this is, you can already consider this as a first ask from our side in terms of getting your support. We know that we can count on your support, but then again, it's really a focused moment to move towards the 22nd of April, which is not that far away, as we all know. Then How this will happen on the 22nd of April will be, of course, a formal ceremony. Heads of state are expected to be there. And then this is also a formal process, which is, of course, in conjunction with an international agreement. But definitely what is expected from leaders coming to New York or country representatives also to say what are their plans for the implementation, how they can live up to what they have indicated in the national contribution, how they are planning to raise their level of ambition in the near term, and what measures have been put in place. One important aspect as well of the INDCs is the fact that if you read them carefully, there is a lot of important information on where certain country needs support, which sectors, which activities, financial needs as well. So this for donors and for the international community and the UN system as well is a very important source of information for understanding how to focus and make the best of the help that can be provided to countries to implement what they have committed to. Then another crucial aspect of the implementation is residing in each of us. As I said, the changing individual behavior will be crucial because each of us can make a difference with our individual behavior. Changing of habits, making sure that whatever we are doing in our private life, it's also part of this overall movement of change towards a low-carbon new world. And therefore, again, an appeal to you and your networks to make sure that this is very well known, understood, that the awareness is raised about these important aspects. It's not a matter left to governments, it's a matter left to all stakeholders, to the private sector, to the business, investors, to local authorities. All of these stakeholders have a very important role to play, and you can make a difference as well in that. And I think I still have a couple of minutes. I think what will be important to look at is the fact that a big progress and movement has been achieved in engaging other stakeholders. Under the umbrella of the climate action, a lot has happened. I cannot really repeat the large number of announcements that were made in Paris in terms of commitments from corporations, in terms of new targets and goals. All these contributed to the momentum of the success of Paris, but this also has all to be implemented. And a lot of these commitments are captured by us, by the Climate Change Secretariat. We have a portal dedicated to that. It's called NAFCA portal. It is accessible from our webpage. I really encourage you to visit it and look at the vast variety of commitments that are coming from all these actors. Concluding, also, I would like to mention an initiative launched by the French presidency, which is called the Paris Pledge for Action. Again, is a very simple statement of support to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. A lot of organizations, individual corporations have signed up to that. We have a very important number already of them, including faith-based organizations who have signed up to the Paris Pledge. We expect that the number will raise again, getting closer to the 2nd of April. So again, get your clear information about the Paris Pledge, and we count again on you to sign up on that, because this is an important signal to government to show that the civil society is behind them, and they look at them to achieve what they're committed to. I think I ran out of my minutes. I can stop here at the moment, and I'm happy to start any discussion later, and of course answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very, very comprehensive outline of the Paris outcome. We have 4 questions I can see. So the first question is, hello from France. This is from Hélène Neveu. Hello from France. Don't you think that growing a tremendous quantity of biomass on land meaning fixed soils and maximum of greenery can trap the excess atmospheric carbon dioxide?
I'm afraid I cannot really use it well. Let me try to read the question myself, if I can see.
If you click on the Q&A, it's the one at the top.
The one on the, okay. Don't you think that growing a tremendous quantity of biomass on lands, thick soil of greenery can trap the excess atmospheric CO2? Well, okay. I mean, the overall elements relating to land use, let's call it land use change, as a key element of the Paris Agreement, because it's not only by the Paris Agreement does not only look at reducing emissions by source versus sequestration, and let's not forget action on adaptation and resilience. Therefore, it's a combination of a variety of action. The modalities of how individual countries want to achieve their goal, of course, varies from what they see as their priority. Certain countries with a tremendous developed forestry sector, of course, they count a lot on that for making sure, or reducing deforestation, or increasing absorption. It's a way to go. And again, the accounting of some of these elements will have to be defined in the years to come. Let me see. The name of address of the portal, the Nazca portal, is accessible from our web page. So you go to the main page of the UNFCCC, you can find the link to that. Otherwise, you go to climateaction.int, and then you will find the Nazca portal.
Another question is, only using nuclear, do we stand a chance to keep below 2 degrees?
Only using nuclear, I don't think, is a credible option for a variety of reasons. While I agree of the zero emission in that context, the viability and the cost of those is far beyond being economically viable in the vast majority of the world. So it's a very complex discussion, and it's never been posed on the table as such. What will make a difference is definitely increasing the number of the share of renewable energy in the energy mix. And therefore, and this is happening. There are incredible amount of investments, billions and billions coming to the renewable sector, which is definitely a better option than nuclear. I'm reading another question. It's a long one, but well, I mean, the influence of faith-based organizations. I'm answering the question of Emily Perry. I think it's the imperative to the moral imperative to take action on climate was really an important factor, and the religious leaders speaking on that, the papal encyclical last year, a number of important faith-based declarations came out all together in support of the Paris outcome. So, and moving forward, I think I touched upon many aspects of this, and they're working on individuals, and therefore having, and as well having voices of leaders or religious leaders to speak up on this point now that they're moving to implementation, because the job is not done at all. I think that's the key element that you can contribute to the success of this. Countries do not implement ambitious goals. Well, I mean, of course, the level of ambition varies to country on the basis of the respective capabilities. You cannot expect the same level of ambition across the world. but the fact that every country, almost every country, part of the convention, put forward their plans, as I said, is an incredible success. It was a surprise also for us, the large number. We didn't expect that much. And therefore, the commitment to review this towards the goal, I think it gives us a positive feeling that this is the right direction. And so I would not, already think about the negative aspect of CEDAW, but I will actually jump on the positive one and push for more. Agricultural sector, it's very similar with my answer to the forestry, and it is a complex aspect going both in mitigation and adaptation. The potential is huge, I fully agree, and again has to be seen on the context of national circumstances, and definitely this will be another key element.
Mr. Violetti, as we've only got a few minutes left for questions, and there's quite a lot of questions coming forward.
Okay.
I think if we take another 2 questions and then move into the faith panel. I'm just looking at them. Any suggestions on how to address the challenge of cheap oil, diminishing enthusiasm for cutting back on carbon?
Well, yeah, definitely the fall in oil price has created the interesting dynamics, which didn't stop the success of Paris. It's not that it's happening now, it happened over a longer period. And therefore, but we have seen the comparative cost of renewables is still declining, and therefore doesn't have a direct immediate effect. Of course, certain countries, oil producer countries, this has a big impact. But it's, as I said, is a matter of changing the energy mix. I mean, the ultimate goal really that we are aiming at is to peak as soon as possible the emissions, knowing that this will not be enough to solve the problem in the atmosphere, and then move to a climate neutral world by the second half of this century. So the goal is ambitious, but it's still doable, being aware that the impacts and the consequences we will have to suffer, and in particular, the most vulnerable will continue to suffer for many years to come. Let me...
So, final question.
Well, I mean, the question about the US and the recent Supreme Court decision, I mean, in any case, there was already a full declaration in the US from Todd Stern confirming the commitment of the US that this will not have an impact on their intention to sign up rather soon the Paris Agreement. I understand, of course, being informed by what I've been reading from the US and officials, that this will not have an impact on their INDC implementation. So we are very positive, and the US has been a very constructive partner of all other countries in achieving this success. So again, we are very positive. So I guess my time is up, but thanks for all these questions. A lot of them I also saw personal questions. It's really a pleasure to have this very interested audience, and I'm still here, and if something comes from the following panel discussion, I'll be happy to be available for further discussing with you.
Mr. Violetti, thank you very much for your presentation and also answering all of the questions. And I think you were delighted, along with everyone, to hear that the Fijian Parliament has already agreed for Fiji to ratify the Paris Agreement. And it was very encouraging to hear that you are getting a lot of positive signals to get the agreement signed and early ratification. And we, the faith community, will obviously do what we can to also push for that. So Fletcher, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kira, and echoing your thanks to Mr. Violetti for his time and contribution and leadership. Let's turn now to hearing some plans from faith communities about what they're looking to do in 2016. Picking up on what Mr. Violetti said, Paris was an important milestone and also represents a point of inflection at which time all of our commitments need to increase. And today we're really pleased to have, in addition to myself, 4 leaders from diverse faith communities who will share briefly about their community's plans for action on climate change in the coming year. I'm going to introduce each of them briefly now, and then invite each of them in the order in which I introduced them to speak for 3 to 4 minutes about the plan of their community, and perhaps to say just a little bit up front that won't be counted against the 3 to 4 minutes about their organizations, their networks, and what they've done in the past. So if each of you could keep your comments overall to 4 minutes, that would be great. We'll start with Tomas Insua, the global coordinator of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. Tomas will be followed by Sister True Dedication of Plum Village, a Buddhist community founded and led by Master Thich Nhat Hanh. Martin Kopp, who is the Climate Justice Advocacy Officer at the Lutheran World Federation, and Lotifa Belgum, who's the Global Advocacy Campaigns Coordinator of Islamic Relief Worldwide. And following each of their statements, I'll say a few words about the GreenFaith Our Voices plan for the coming year. Tomas, let's start with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Fletcher, and thanks, Daniele, for your kickoff. Great to see you all. And, well, I'm very glad to be joining this GreenFaith webinar and sharing thoughts and experiences with the faith community worldwide. So let me quickly introduce, I'll try to keep it under 4 minutes, quickly introduce GCCM, which is the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So this is a pretty new coalition. We started it only 1 year ago in January 2015. And, well, our goal, of course, is to mobilize the Catholic community for climate action, leveraging, of course, the Pope's encyclical. We currently are a coalition of over 300 organizations worldwide across all continents, Catholic organizations taking action against climate change. And let me dive into the to give you some context of what we did last year. Our focus was, of course, on promoting the encyclical, given that the encyclical was out, and taking action. We had a pretty big focus on mobilization last year in 2015. On one side, we had the Catholic Climate Petition, where we pushed really hard for the 1.5 degrees goal, and we collected almost 1 million signatures, 900,000 signatures from the Catholic community delivered in Paris to Christiana, and together with all the faith communities here. And then we had a big focus on the Global Climate March, mobilizing pretty strongly for that. In terms of 2016 plans, there are a few priorities. The first one, of course, is to continue promoting Laudato Si, the encyclical, far and wide. We especially want to have a big moment around the anniversary, the first year anniversary of Laudato Si, which is in June 18th. We plan to do a pretty big action in grassroots Catholic communities worldwide to get the word out about Laudato Si. It had a lot of coverage, but there's still a long way to go to get all Catholics. I mean, this is the Catholic family is really big. It's 1.2 billion Catholics that too many haven't read the encyclical yet, so the idea is to push the encyclical really hard. Second priority will be at a parish level as well. We're getting out an eco-parishes toolkit, trying to help parishes in the ground to take action for climate change and to turn to renewables, to implement energy efficiency measures, et cetera, and trying to celebrate those cases of parishes that are taking action ambitiously. Then we're starting as well a divest and reinvest program that we hope to work together closely with GreenFaith as well, trying to get the Catholic community to divest and shift our investments from dirty fuels to clean energy, to clean renewable energy. And then we'll have a track on lifestyles as well. I mean, as Daniele said, ultimately we need to change our lifestyles. And lastly, in terms of mobilization and advocacy, we plan to continue pushing the petition and trying to engage local Catholic communities to meet the local government. So in line of what Daniele asked, trying to push governments to take action. So trying to get the local bishops and the local Catholic communities, hopefully together with the other faith communities in each country, to continue pushing governments, asking them to increase the level of ambition of their NDCs. And first, of course, to ratify to sign and ratify the agreement, but most importantly, to increase the level of ambition of the NDCs, which we know is very far from the level of ambition we need. So I'll leave it there because I think I'm over 4 minutes.
Great, thanks, Tomas. Perfect. That's great. Let's go next to Sister True Dedication of the Plum Village community. Sister True Dedication, if you can unmute yourself and turn on your, there you go. Welcome, it's great to be with you. Tell us about your plans.
Thank you so much, Fletcher and everybody, and thank you also to Mr. Violetti for such a wonderful presentation. We're very happy to be here with you all. So Plum Village, we're an international grassroots community, and we're a member of the Global Buddhist Climate Change Collective. And together with them, we were very happy to statement ahead of the Paris COP. And we were also able to participate in the first day of the conference there, and that was a wonderful opportunity for us. As a spiritual community, our engaged action and our spirituality come together very naturally. So in order to support COP21, we had 2 weeks of what we called kind of climate prayer. So we had 5 concrete actions that we did as a global international community that are connected to our own practice. So for example, for us, being vegan is a very important way to reduce our environmental impact. So we asked all of the members of our community worldwide to have 2 weeks of eating vegan, as well as following a number of spiritual practices, but also calling on our quite massive global community in Buddhist terms, I guess, to join actions, so to join climate marches and so on. That was a very nourishing experience for everyone, and it's something we want to look ahead to repeat in 2016. So we're hoping to have some actions, in particular in May. So we will, and my brother will speak a little bit about that. We're also participating in the interfaith statement ahead of April the 22nd. So we're hoping to support Mr. Violetti and the team there to raise awareness and all the points that have been mentioned. We're happy to lend our voice to that, and also the spiritual dimension. So we do all these things from a deeper place in our hearts, out of our courage, out of our love, out of our honesty, out of our generosity. So we're hoping to speak to that in the statement, which we will, of course, widely distribute also through our own networks. And in our Buddhist tradition, in Buddhist spirituality, our connection to the earth is something very deep and natural, completely embedded in every aspect of our life as a community. Our spiritual practices, our activities. So we have an organic farm as a proof of alternative approaches to agriculture. And in fact, I think we see our whole community as a living experiment to prove that it's possible to live with a low impact, to live simply, to live happily, to live in a kind of poverty with a lot of harmony, to show especially the young generation that even if we have radical changes in our lifestyle, happiness, well-being, meaning, and change are possible. That is nourishing, and it's a way to naturally connect us and build a new future together. So we aspire to embody that. As a community, we hope to also be a refuge so that people can come to us, activists, and people who are active in civil society, raising awareness on all these issues. So a place to recharge themselves, to refresh themselves, and also to learn some of our mindfulness practices that help us have presence, peace and stability, clarity in our engaged action out in the world. So in 2016, we are also continuing to offer that, in particular for the young generation. So maybe my brother can share a little bit about that. This is Brother Fabian.
Hello. Just to let you know, our community, our monastery is not just for Buddhists. Many Christians, Catholic, Muslim, and non-faith come to it. And they're interested to learn the practice of mindfulness, learning how to stop. Many of them are like refugees from our fast pace, and they feel very disconnected from their work, from their families. And so they come to our community for refuge. And in fact, Happy Farm is also a place where they come down and work, and they go on their knees and they find out where the potatoes and carrots come from. So we found that it's very healing. So our community, we provide a place for people to come, and in the summer, maybe 1,000 people come in all, and families as well. So this is they come and to find another way of living, which we kind of like copying what they're doing in terms of in the financial area. There's like a divestment movement to try to like move money away from fossil fuel. We have a movement we're starting to term a diverge movement. So find a way to live happily and harmoniously. So this is what we're providing with the mindfulness practice to help people when they in touch with themselves, they find a little true happiness with themselves, find peace and reconcile with their family members, and their life become to more flourishing, and then they don't run after material things anymore. You see, this is like very fundamental in our what we're teaching. So it's not just about putting money somewhere else. It's actually when you feel happy and fulfilled and content inside, you no longer are running after for material things as well as distraction. Their lifestyle begins to change. And this is a key element, I think, for our spiritual communities too. And I think we're all doing it. I think that's the basis of all the spiritual communities, spirituality. It helps people really touch true happiness inside. And it's from that basis that, and it is pretty radical because, the last century and before that is very based on running and fulfilling ourselves. And this is what has brought us, the trouble that we are in. Is based on an external consumption and external, depriving of others. So naturally, all the faith communities, once we return to the fundamental of it, it will teach people the true happiness lies within, and then from that they can share. So this is if they don't have that individually and with their family members, then it's hard. They don't have time. They don't have space for other people or other groups. And so this is what we teach, and we're teaching this with young people. We have a wake up movement, and so this year we hope to promote more of this engagement in the young community. It's a very lively movement in our globally, and we want to encourage young people. There's an alternative. Yes, they can still have a job, but they try to live with less impact, more simply, and not to spend money on the weekend or on the week, but to use that and put in other places so you can help other peoples and other groups. So we hope to spread more of the work that was done in Paris, and we're so happy that that the faith groups are going hand in hand with the policy and the governments and the organizations. It's not just a policy issue; it's a whole spiritual and lifestyle, like my brother Tomas has shared. We need to really look at the foundation. What has brought us here is because our lifestyle. You're not satisfied with one T-shirt or one weather, but every season changing, and that has we have to find a new model for that.
Thank you so much, Plum Village. It's wonderful to hear everything that you're doing, and it's wonderful to have you with us. We really appreciate it greatly. Let's hear now from Martin Kopp with the Lutheran World Federation. Martin, share with us your plans and the LWF's work for the coming year. LWF has done so much over the last period of years. It's great to be with you.
Bonjour, everyone. Yeah, thank you very much, Fletcher, and thank you for the opportunity to share today our plans for 2016, and thank you to Daniele Violetti for sharing his own thoughts that are very helpful. Well, just to remind you what LWF is at the outset, we are a global communion of 142 churches around the world in 98 countries, gathering 72 million Lutherans worldwide. And we're committed on climate, but not alone. It's very important for us to work ecumenically. So first with the World Council of Churches, as well as the ACT Alliance, which are based in Geneva, together with the Lutheran World Federation, but also our Catholic brothers and sisters, Anglicans, Orthodox, and so on, and also have a collaboration with partners from other faiths. So this has been the case throughout 2015, and we wanted to continue throughout 2016 and the years to come. Well, yes, last year, very quickly, one big step for us was that our council that gathers once a year did a new public statement on climate change, which included the decision to divest at the communion level. So we are very much in line with what has been said and shared by Thomas before, and calling on our member churches around the world to divest and reinvest in energy efficiency and renewable energies. Apart from that, we've been doing advocacy the whole year long, both at the national and the international level. At national level, we have Lutheran leaders who have met or sent letters with to their presidents, to their heads of state, prime ministers, and especially I've been based in France and I worked with faith leaders in France, and we handed the first interfaith declaration on the climate crisis to the President François Hollande on the 1st of July. And we've been involved in several advocacy actions at the international level. One of the most important for us being the Fast for the Climate, which happens on the 1st of each month, and you may have heard of. And also we collaborate in the pilgrimages that have not been mentioned yet, but many people walking to Paris, reaching Paris for COP21, as well as the petitions. For this year, we have three main objectives for our climate action. First, to advocate for climate justice at the global level, so not let the ball drop. Second, to promote national commitment and advocacy through our member churches. And third, to build our member churches' capacity to do concrete actions. And to reach those three objectives, we have several activities that are being planned right now. And I guess it is like many other actors around, we are still in the process of planning and trying to find our ground. But to advocate for climate justice globally, first, we'll send a delegation of young people to COP22. So we've been in COPs before, and we will keep going to the COP, which we consider an important place. This time it will probably be an African delegation with a strong focus on climate justice, the vulnerable communities, and the building of resilience. We will also take part in global campaigns, first and foremost, the Fast for the Climate that keeps going. When it comes to concrete, detailed advocacy lines, they are still in the process of being defined, and this is done together with the World Council of Churches and ACT Alliance. Then, to promote national commitment and advocacy, we are especially working on setting up 6 concrete climate projects in 6 different countries in the Global South that would allow not only to have a very concrete climate impact on the ground, but also to have an advocacy dynamics that goes from the local level and the difficulties and the realities all the way up to the national level and the international level. And finally, to build our member churches' capacity, here we have the biggest number of initiatives that we are working on. The first one is to keep coordinating and expanding a group which we have, which is made of young people from all over the world, that is called LWF for Climate Justice, and we meet once a month and have projects together. We will publish as well a toolkit, a climate justice toolkit to be used, sharing ideas and advice for concrete action at home. So also this is actually the same project as Thomas just spoke about for GCCM. We will initiate and accompany 15 specific climate justice projects in our member churches. We will run a training on ecological justice and poverty in Africa, since this is the continent that will host the COP this year. And last but not least, it is always important not to forget the past and to be well rooted in history. We will publish a historical resource called 40 Years of LWF Climate Justice Advocacy, recalling the history and the public statements and the activities that we've been doing for decades by now. Thank you very much. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Martin. Thank you, as always. Lotifa from Islamic Relief Worldwide. It's great to be with you, Lotifa. Tell us about all of Islamic Relief Worldwide's good work and plans.
Great, thank you so much, Fletcher, and to everyone else who has been sharing so much of the inspiring work which has been taking place over the past year. So Islamic Relief was involved last year, as many of you may be aware, in the launch of the Islamic Climate Change Declaration, which took place in Istanbul in August and was signed by over 80 faith and Muslim leaders from around the world. Since the launch of the declaration, there's been a number of climate-related awareness activities that have been taking place, and specifically we've seen the declaration be a catalyst of activities that have taken place in specifically Muslim specific communities and countries. We had last year in November, for the first time, an interfaith seminar which looked at disseminating the climate change declaration and actually targeting the grassroots community in disseminating the toolkit which Islamic Relief has also put together since the declaration was launched. We've been looking at how we can strengthen the global Muslim climate activist networks, which have really started to emerge since the declaration was launched last year. And particularly this year, we're looking at launching a global Muslim climate network that would allow us to reach out to far broader communities within the Muslim community with the Islamic Climate Change Declaration toolkit. One of the other key things that we're looking to do this year through the Global Muslim Climate Network is to establish the Green Ramadan initiative. This is one of the most important months within the Muslim calendar, and it's taking place this year in June. And this initiative will help us to raise awareness about climate change and encourage Muslim communities all over the world to take practical actions to reduce their own waste and carbon footprint. A number of mosques will be mobilized around the Green Ramadan initiative, which started off in the US, but we're now looking at making that go international. A number of webinars will also be taking place. Some of them include on the Islamic perspective on water, looking at planting and gardening from a faith-based perspective, and also on reading Ramadan, which will take place in May. We've also got a toolkit that has been established by Green Muslims, another partner that has really worked with us on the Islamic Climate Change Declaration. And making sure that the Green Mosque guidelines are shared widely amongst mosques. I believe last year over 30 mosques actually took on those guidelines, which is really important in identifying how faith teaches us to be much more environmentally friendly. We also have at the end of this month, there will be an Eco Mosque program, which is being launched in Indonesia. And this is something that we're very much hoping will be then taken by many of the other kind of mosques around the world to try to adopt. And finally, I think one of the key things that we're looking at this year is with the next COP being in Marrakesh. This is a real opportunity for us to engage Muslim countries in making sure that they are fulfilling their national action plans. So the Muslim climate sort of action groups that we have, we're hoping to use this as a lobbying opportunity, but also to engage environmental ministers from Muslim countries, and will be a part of the interfaith statement that will be taking place now in the next couple of months. So those are some of the action plans for this year, and we look forward very much to working with all the other faith partners on it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Lotifa, and thanks to all of our our faith speakers. I know that Tomas and perhaps others have to go right at the very top of the hour. We'll wrap up in the next 90 seconds. Just by way of wrapping up the faith portion of the program, GreenFaith, the GreenFaith Our Voices team is helping to convene, along with the other faith groups here on this call, a process through which we'll produce a multi-faith statement for release in relationship to the 22nd of April signing ceremony at the United Nations, in which we'll be urging world leaders to ratify as rapidly as possible the Paris Agreement, and also encouraging further action. The text of that statement is being developed as we speak. We're also looking forward to announcing very soon a 12th of June multi-faith day of prayer and action in support of action on climate change. That's the 6-month anniversary of the origination of the Paris Agreement, and we're looking forward to sharing more about that in the weeks to come also. So we've also have plans underway for some leadership training for faith leaders in Brazil and in the US. Again, more about that soon. Kira, I'll pass back to you for a final closing word.
Thank you very much, Fletcher, and thank you very, very much to all of the panelists. I mean, there is so many things going on, which is very, very exciting. And I think particularly, 2015 saw the rising of the faith momentum. And it's very important that we all keep sounding the bell that the fossil fuel era is over. And to go back to Mr. Violetti's points, it's very important that we do urge our countries to sign and to quickly ratify the Paris Agreement, because as soon as that can happen, then we can move into concrete actions. And as Mr. Violetti said, it really is important because there is so many transformations ahead. It's not just the technological or the economic points, but it is also the personal changes that we're going to all have to make. And that is definitely an area that the faith community can help on. So thank you very much to everyone. There don't seem to be too many questions. There's quite a lot of comments that you want web links to the panelists and an overview of what the panelists are doing. So we can send that. But thank you to Mr. Violetti. Thank you very much to our panelists, and also thank you very much to everyone who has participated in this webinar. Thank you.